Welcome to the 10th annual session of the Indonesia Economic Forum. Today's session on accelerating the digital economy, and we're very pleased to have with us Dr. Engineer Ilham Habibie, Chief Executive of the National ICT Council, Wantiknas of the Republic of Indonesia. Today's session is designed to bring together innovators, policymakers and influencers, as well as entrepreneurs, on a platform that will help to facilitate and support Indonesia's digital transformation as we move towards advancing technologies that will help to shape the future of the country, business, commerce, on the basis of digital inclusion for the entire population. Dr. Ilham, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. We have a number of points we'd like to explore with you with regard to accelerating the digital economy and exactly what that will mean for that nexus of business and commerce as it faces the policy environment in Indonesia and where that meets the global environment for the regulation of the digital economy more broadly. So perhaps if we could start off by exploring where you see opportunities for collaboration between the government and the private sector in the digital economy, and if you have any case studies where this is already starting to bear fruit, for example, in Indonesia.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. I think that it's probably better to focus first on what fields and what sector within the digital economy things should be happening or are already happening. So we are seeing that in the last years in areas such as fintech, for instance. Yeah. Indonesia is actually one of the most advanced countries you can find in the region, even globally, when it comes to innovation in that particular sector. And that is because of the policy or the attitude of the regulator and also the central bank in that regard. Whenever there is something new coming up, it is given some space first in what we call the sandbox. Yeah? So there's room to experiment, but the risk is minimized by basically monitoring it closely. So in that time frame, whenever you have that sandbox available, then the framework for policy and regulation is being developed, and once it's ready, then it's fully launched. There's no guarantee that that is already sufficient. I mean, we've seen now big challenges in Indonesia, where particularly online lending, there's a lot of victims here, and that is it's not because of rules and regulation, but mainly because of the inability to prevent illegal lenders to come into the market. So the big challenge here is basically to improve digital and also financial literacy for the users. It's very difficult to prevent that kind of a phenomenon happening in any market. It's so easy to enter the market and basically make your money here and then disappear again, or you remain here as an illegal lender. But I think the key here is not to sort of firewall the whole of Indonesia, and so nobody illegal can come in, but it is to educate the population what to do and what not to do. Yeah. So that is a good example how the collaboration between the government as the regulator and the government as also the giving the direction where they should go in a particularly active sector in Indonesia has been happening, is still happening, because fintech is certainly is there since a few years, but there's always new things happening in every sector in there. And that is because the digital technology itself or the is developing fast when it comes to disruptive innovation. I think in the last days we have seen the turbulence in artificial intelligence. Yes. With the, I mean, it was just very surprising, to say the least, what has been happening in some companies in the US just over the weekend, and it shows the hope and also the fear that people have vis-a-vis that particular breakthrough technology. And we are just at the beginning, and you can imagine, and this is so digital, I mean, it needs a lot of data. Yes. It needs high computing power. It needs fully developed cloud system in order to gather the data. It needs so many things. Yeah. So that is the prime example of what to expect in the future, and also where this might be going in terms of acceleration. I mean, we're talking about acceleration. Yes. So right now, the vision of AI for any technology, including any digital technology, is it will be helping for us to be more productive, more efficient, more effective to do our work. So basically, think of it as an assistant, as a co-pilot. Of course, if you develop that picture further, then people think that at some point in time we don't have to think anymore and everything is taken over by AI. I think that is exactly the fear that many people have about that, but it depends on us, how we regulate this, how we do this. Indonesia, your question was about Indonesia, I think Indonesia, first of all, is a very prospective case here because we have the big numbers. We have 280 million people. If you would appropriately gather the data of all Indonesians, from very simple matters until very complicated matters, it would be the cornerstone of basically using the data to develop new businesses, new companies and industries. Yeah. But for that, there needs to be a strong data policy, and also the government needs to be more open about data that are not conflictuous in nature. There's of course always a balance to be met between the privacy of the data and the universal use of the data. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, you mentioned some of those emerging technologies. Right. Fintech is one example, AI is another, and you also mentioned the very large size of Indonesia's population.
Right. Yeah.
One of the clear challenges then is the development of that digital literacy and the skills development that's required for Indonesia to take up the advantages of these technologies. How would you say, what structures does the private sector need to put in place, for example, to support that digital literacy and the development of the skills that are required for that, given Indonesia's wide disparity between urban and rural situations?
Well, first of all, I think it is true that there's this disparity in terms of rural and urban, but there's also another disparity in age-wise. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Why do I say this? Well, it is a fact that 2/3 of Indonesians are millennials or even younger, and when it comes to digital matters, it's a very different thing to try to teach a millennial something about digital than somebody who is older than that. So that generational disparity also is something to be considered when you want to design the right way how to basically increase any kind of literacy, because the digital aspect, be it financial literacy or digital literacy itself or other literacies, you can use digital technology in order to bridge that gap. And when it comes to millennials in different parts of the country, whether it's in a big urban area like Jakarta or in the countryside, the disparity between those are less than the ones that are not digital or not millennial, because they are connected already. I mean, the advent of the smartphone some years ago, where people thought it would be something only to be had for the rich. But in today's Indonesia, I think many people that are definitely not considered to be rich, they have smartphones already and use that. I mean, they maybe buy them not necessarily first hand, but they can buy them second hand, and the price of the smartphone has fallen to a very lows. I mean, there's of course very expensive ones that have enormous capability, but that's not the smartphone you really need for most people. Right? That's really only for the very advanced users. But very simple application that can exactly bridge that digital gap, or in terms of literacy, can already be overcome by the very simple smartphone that most people already have in Indonesia. Yeah,
I think you're right, and there's definitely a demographic bonus for Indonesia, considering the age paradigm that you mentioned. Many of the attendees today will be from the private sector.
Right.
We have a number from government too. Do you see prospects for public-private partnerships in the digital transformation in accelerating this, and what areas of infrastructure, if so, should the private sector focus on in order to engage that acceleration best?
Okay, I think we have seen already good examples of private-public collaboration in the field of education. There is a program by the Ministry for Education, Culture, Research and Technology called Campus Merdeka, or independent learning. Actually, the minister told me it's actually emancipated learning, independent learning. In that regard, the private sector is given the opportunity to participate in that and basically provide programs online for the university that participating in this program, and of course the private company has to be certified in terms of the company itself, but also in terms of the curriculum they offer. So here we have the case that the private sector can offer courses and knowledge that is not being offered by the universities yet. Many of them are private, but also a lot of them are public. So it's sort of like a public-private sector mix when it comes to universities, but the providers of filling the holes in the overall landscape of education is there's a lot of private players. And that would be a good example for public-private collaboration, where the design of the curriculum is actually being, how can I say, it's being considered by the public sector, and then they're basically fill the gap with something that's been offered by the private sector. And that is something, it's quite an innovation for a government actually to support the innovation provided by whoever can come up with this work for the ones that need it, and that is basically the students. The problem if you don't do this is you cannot innovate fast enough. So there's a high demand in the market for learning, and also for the learners once they graduate. The ones that have that knowledge, they can find a job better than others because that's what's needed for the industry. So it's not really learning for the sake of getting more knowledge only, but knowledge that's actually necessary to be had when it comes to getting a good job. Yeah.
Thank you. We've talked about the advantages that these emerging technologies can bring to the economy and to the population at large. Have you identified, can you consider what the key challenges might be in Indonesia for investors seeking to be in these emerging technologies, and in their rollout of these technologies nationwide? How would they overcome some of these challenges, whether they are policy and regulatory or otherwise?
Policy and regulatory is indeed sometimes a big hurdle for many investors. I'll give you an example. Very often we find requirements as local content. It can be 35%, 40%, or what have you. And for some products and services, it's very difficult to realize that. And so, as an investor, as somebody who's interested in the Indonesian market, you have to be creative in that. And I think that there is flexibility on the Indonesian government side as well. But this is a challenge that many investors, if they don't go into the market and really have a discussion with the government or with a regulator, then from the outside it looks like a very big hurdle. It cannot be overcome. But there is solutions to that. But it is definitely a problem. The other thing is that some people complain about the inconsistencies of regulation itself. There are sometimes changes that are unexpected, and that sometimes is a problem for the investors. Some of the changes are motivated by political manners, because government officers in some cases are politicians as well, and they sometimes have different motivations when it comes to making those rules and regulations, and so I think that is a challenge that most investors have in Indonesia in general, in whatever sector. The consistency of the regulation. And here I have to mention that Indonesia, in its democratic structure, we have a relatively large degree of so-called decentralization. So we have rules and regulation at the central level, which are, I think, by and large, relatively consistent. But when it comes to the local level, and some of these rules and regulations are only to be made by the central level, but when it comes to the local level, they have some authority to do some rules and regulation. I cannot go in detail right now, but there are, I think, whatever is being discussed and decided by the central level sometimes is not really in harmony with what's happening in the local level. These politicians on the local level sometimes have a different background than the ones in the central level, also politically. They come from different parties, they have different professional understanding of the business and economy, and therefore the outcome is, yes, they have also different interests, obviously, and so the outcome is sometimes there's a mismatch between what's happening on the local and on the local level and the central level. Yeah. Because Indonesia has 500 plus local entities. That these are provinces, these are regencies, independent cities, and they're all elected. Yeah, and so that's where
and we have the election coming up.
We have the election coming out on the 14th of April, 14th of February for the president and for the parliament, and then we have later on in the year for the many, I think a few hundred of the governors and
so we'll
so-called regions and mayors. Yeah, yeah.
So we've talked about Indonesia, and this year we recognize that Indonesia has been the chair of ASEAN.
Right.
One of the main pillars of development that ASEAN's been pursuing during this year has been the digital transformation.
Yes.
Do you see opportunities for greater integration with the ASEAN member states on the digital transformation, as we've seen in economic integration? Is that a benefit to Indonesia?
First of all, digital transformation is something that every country goes through. Yeah, I mean, it's ASEAN, it's the whole world. Of course, it has different effect on the country because of the different levels of development. And when I say development, it's actually as development of the economy, the country itself, but also the individual, right? The level of education, etc. So digital transformation or digital technology, one character that it has, in many cases, it can provide inclusion. So meaning to say that we talked about fintech before. One theme of fintech is basically bank the unbanked, right? So there's a lot of people that don't have access to banking services because of, say, they don't fulfill the criteria to be a customer of a bank, or they are living in an area where there are no banks, or they don't even know about a bank and the benefit of a bank, so they have a little distrust of that. Yeah. So there's many reasons not to be banked in Indonesia and in many other countries as well. And fintech can actually provide those services to those people that so far didn't have that. And the numbers are mind-boggling. I mean, we have almost 50%, or around 50% are not banked in Indonesia. Now this is Indonesia. Now talk about other countries, right? I mean, in ASEAN we have a mix. Indonesia is, I would say, like in the middle. There's countries that are less developed than Indonesia. There's countries that are more developed than Indonesia. And so, using digital technologies, I think if we have something like a free trade area, free trade agreement for ASEAN, yeah. And I think, I'm not sure that some digital aspects are included in that as well. It has to do with the free flow of data, I think, right? So if that data can be made to benefit all ASEAN citizens in the same way, yes, in the beginning there will be some countries, some parts of that country benefiting more than others, but because people are getting more and more used to get information digitally, in the end I think it will level more the discrepancy between countries and also the layers within those countries. So yes, digital transformation is something beneficial for ASEAN as well. At the same time, it doesn't come without risk. I mean, what I said before is only one aspect, meaning the people falling into the fintech trap or the online lending trap. What about hoax and deep fake and basically things that confuse the population, sometimes on purpose? Well, it has to do with the education. Yep. Again, we have to educate people in order to have a critical thinking as a mindset when it comes to using the internet, because if you don't have that, you tend to be too quickly convinced of something that's not necessarily true.
So we've established that data security and data sovereignty are key in this development.
Yeah.
And we are seeing a range of emerging technologies now becoming quite ubiquitous in Indonesia. Blockchain, AI and artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things.
Yeah.
How do you see a role for them in accelerating the digital economy? How will they actually achieve that?
Okay, first of all, let's go one by one. Yeah? As I mentioned AI already before, let's start with AI. So AI is something that we in Indonesia already use since many years. People are just not aware about that. Let's pick an application like, for instance, Google Maps. So you want to find the quickest way to get from A to B. Then you switch on this apps, and then you know how to do this. But of course, this uses AI already, right? I think all of us have become more aware of the impact of AI since we have this so-called large language LLM or large language model-based AI called generative AI, like ChatGPT and others. Then, because it acts like a human, and we think we are talking to somebody who is real, but it's an AI thing. So that made people really wonder. Some of them were excited, many were fearful, but that is, I think, where AI made the disruptive impression on people that this is something very powerful. Before they used it, but it's more like it was under the surface. It wasn't really visible and not felt as such. And I think now people understand that AI has actually a large chance to change things for the better or for the worse. It depends. Yeah, people now talk about replacing certain jobs with AI, or at least reducing the number of people working in these jobs, like secretaries, accountants, even lawyers, etc. They can be empowered with AI. The question is, do you need still that many, or can many jobs be taken over by AI? Things that are repetitive in nature and don't need really the human mind as such, these can be done maybe better even by AI, because it's a machine. It doesn't make much mistakes. Only the mistakes are there whenever you the input is wrong, basically. Yeah, but based on the right input, it gives you a pretty good answer to everything. Yeah? So AI is something that will definitely contribute to the acceleration. At the same time, acceleration when it comes to making jobs or job holders more efficient, effective, better, getting faster result, higher quality result, and also lower cost result. At the same time, there will be also basically job reduction. So there's new jobs to be created. There's the jobs to be reduced. So I don't know how to relate that to an acceleration of the economy, but it's a disruption of the whole job market itself. Yeah. Then blockchain itself is I think best understood when it comes to things like cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Also, what is now being we can see it on the horizon already, is carbon trading. And carbon trading in its modern form is also done in a digital way, and there blockchain is very important, right? So it makes me sure, it ensures basically that we know exactly how the transaction unfold, and in an anonymous way, but it is, because it's digital, you have a very complex transaction when you participate, and can make sure you understand the validity of the transaction.
Yes,
even
very
the
viable.
It's very viable. Yeah, it's already happening. But I mean, if you talk about transactions, like say you're a trader, and you do export import, many things that we want to do digital are not digital yet, like customs. Yeah. I mean, you still have to submit paper.
Yeah.
You have to stamp it, etc. You have to really digitalize the whole chain, and then you see the true value and the true acceleration that happens through blockchain. Right now, there's still a lot of roadblocks that are not truly digital yet. It's in process, but I have the feeling it takes some time until everything will be digital. That is actually the case, not only in Indonesia, in many countries around the world. There's certain things are not really digital yet. It takes time. Then the last thing that you mentioned is IoT, or Internet of Things. This is basically something that we all have in our mind, that everything we have in our life has a sensor in it. Let's say, I mean, very trivial, or sometimes even trivial example is that you have your fridge. Yeah, and the fridge has a few sensors, and through the sensors you know that you need to buy milk or cheese, or the yogurt you bought has gone bad, and you have to order a new one. Yeah, this is still, I think, on the horizon. Yeah, I mean, Industry 4.0, yes, you do have that in the factory. but in our daily life, maybe not yet. It has to do, I think, with the price point. Right now, all of us are wondering, what do we actually get out of 5G? Yeah? People don't know what is the killer application for 5G. And now we know already that in 2030 we will have 6G. What will be the killer application of 6G? Well, I had a discussion with a professor from India recently, and he mentioned that he could envision the killer application, actually a massive IoT, because right now we don't have the case anywhere in the world where we have 1 million sensor placed in a city for a particular application. 1 million. And what would that be? Let's assume we have 1 million smart meters in a city. So every meter to read water, electricity, gas, and what have you is not. Nobody comes and puts it down in a book, or you can take a photo and send it as a proof to the company that basically needs the data, etc. But it's automatically connected through the internet. If you would envision 1 million sensors for one application using 4G, 5G, it would break down. And you have that multiple times. For that, you need 6G. So, but we are not there yet because it's still too expensive. So, it's a matter of getting the economics, technology, and the target, what you want to do, what kind of value you bring to this, to the users and to the industry into one, and it really matches everything. That would be the IoT success story. Yeah. But we are not there yet. But that needs still some time. So it's a matter of network is still not capable. Actually, if you think about the scale, even if you have it, it's still too expensive. As I said, 6G is 2030 maybe. Yeah. So we are not even there yet. So IoT, yes, we have it in the industry. They can afford it, but as a consumer, there's always a talk of a smart home, etc. But how many people have that? Only a few, right? So I think to have that in a massive scale, it takes still some time. Yeah. Industry 4.0 is there; it's a reality. So for the economy on the industrial side, yes, IoT is there, but for the consumer side, no. Blockchain, I think in the industry, let's say financial industry, you already use it for certain transactions. For the consumer, some like to trade with a particularly young generation, cryptocurrency, right? AI, yes, we have been using it for a long time already, but only since recently we stumbled upon the enormous, fascinating results of the LLM, the large language models, in the form of generative AI. Then we were like shocked. Yeah. So I think that one is already having a large impact on
Very
us.
much so.
Yeah.
And perhaps a final question. We talked a little earlier about how some of the digital transformation is political. Some of the players within it may be political.
Okay.
We're also facing a geopolitical world these days, where we have providers with technology and advances from China on one hand, and also from the West. How does Indonesia balance the availability of these technologies that we're seeing being offered as part of the Belt and Road from China, and the major platforms we're seeing from the West? Sitting in the middle here in Southeast Asia, does Indonesia have a place in that balance?
Okay, I think from a political perspective, Indonesia needs to have neither in the camp of the US nor in the camp of China. We are basically friendly to both. We are partnering with both. When it comes to digital matters, these two countries have different attitudes toward digital matters. I would say that the US is like a large open system, because they want to be open, because they want to basically also export the technology. They cannot prevent people to come into their country with digital matters, except one country, which is China, because there's this geopolitical tension between the two countries. And China as a country is the opposite when it comes to digital matters. I mean, if you go to China, then yes, they have everything available, but it's all Chinese. There are certain things you can't use in China because it's forbidden. Yeah? And the internet works perfectly in China, but there are certain restrictions. Yeah? There are certain things you can't do. And that has to do with the nature of the political system in both countries, and they're just different. Yeah? What about us in Indonesia? Well, as a country, we resemble more US, I think, because we're open. Yeah. But as an economy, our relations are much stronger with China. China is the second largest investor in Indonesia, and maybe in the future it's going to be largest. Yeah? So the interdependency between those two economies, I think, will be growing, and it's something we cannot prevent because we are almost neighbors. Yeah? I mean, these links in business in Asia, I mean, we talk about East Asia, Southeast Asia, have been there for centuries. Belt and Road that connects China, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Middle East, and part of Europe. Right?
Even Latin America.
Latin America, yeah. Well, that's an extension of the original Belt and Road. I mean, I'm talking about the old Silk Road, which is the initiator for the idea of Belt and Road. But of course, that in the 21st century, that concept can be expanded globally. So Africa would be also another part of the globe that originally was not part, I think, by and large, of the Silk Road, right? So yeah, I think we have to differentiate between political systems that are maybe there are stronger links. I shouldn't say stronger, but stronger resemblance between two countries here, Indonesia and US. And when it comes to economic matters, I think China is more impactful than Indonesia.
Well, Dr. Ilham Habibie, thank you very much for this contribution to accelerating the digital economy, part of the 10th session of the Indonesia Economic Forum. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Pleasure. Thanks. Terima kasih.